The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the ballroom floor as Simone Clark stood frozen, watching the man she was supposed to marry in 3 weeks spin another woman in his arms. The 3-carat diamond engagement ring felt heavy in her palm, its edges cutting into her skin as she gripped it tighter. Brandon Roberts, her fiancé of 8 months, had his hands placed intimately on Rachel Martinez's waist. The same hands that had slipped this very ring onto Simone's finger during a romantic dinner at their favorite restaurant. The same hands that had caressed her face when he whispered promises about their future together. But those promises were lies. Every single one of them. The manila envelope in her purse contained 47 photographs, 12 recorded phone conversations, and bank statements showing hotel charges dating back 6 months. 6 months of betrayal. 6 months of working late, and client dinners, and business trips, that were actually romantic getaways with his secretary. Simone's heart pounded as she watched Rachel lean into Brandon's chest, her red dress a stark contrast against his black tuxedo. They moved together like they had done this dance 1,000 times before. Which, according to the private investigator's report, they probably had. The engagement party was in full swing around them. 200 guests celebrated what they believed was a love story. Brandon's law firm partners laughed over expensive whiskey. Simone's family members smiled and took photos. Her mother kept asking when she and Brandon would start having babies. Nobody knew that in 10 minutes Simone would destroy everything. She looked across the room and found her target. Mrs. Eleanor Roberts sat at the head table, elegant in her navy blue dress, beaming with pride as she watched her son dance. Brandon's mother had always treated Simone like the daughter she never had. She deserved to know the truth about her precious boy. The music swelled and Brandon dipped Rachel low. She laughed, her hand resting on his chest in a gesture too familiar for a boss and employee. Several guests noticed and whispered among themselves. Some looked confused. Others seemed to finally understand what they had been seeing but ignoring. Simone's best friend Natasha appeared at her elbow. "You ready for this?" "I've been ready since I saw those pictures 3 days ago," Simone replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her chest. "Remember, you don't owe him anything. Not after what he did." Simone nodded. She had practiced this moment in her mirror, rehearsed every word, planned every step. Brandon thought he was so clever, carrying on his affair right under everyone's noses. He thought she was too trusting, too naive to notice the signs. He was wrong. The song began to wind down and Simone knew it was time. She smoothed her emerald green dress, checked her reflection in a nearby mirror, and walked toward Mrs. Roberts with purpose. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, each step bringing her closer to ending the biggest lie of her life. Brandon's mother looked up as Simone approached, her face lighting up with genuine warmth. "Simone, darling, you look absolutely stunning tonight. That dress is perfect on you." "Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. You look beautiful as well." Simone's voice remained calm, even though her heart was racing. "I need to speak with you about something important." The older woman's expression shifted slightly, sensing the seriousness in Simone's tone. "Of course, dear. What is it?" Simone glanced back at the dance floor where Brandon and Rachel were now standing close together, talking in hushed tones. She could see Rachel's hand resting on Brandon's arm, could see the way he leaned down to whisper something in her ear that made her giggle. "Mrs. Roberts, I'm returning this to you." Simone opened her palm, revealing the engagement ring. The diamond caught the light and sparkled mockingly. "Your son won't be needing it anymore." Eleanor Roberts stared at the ring, confusion clouding her features. "I don't understand, sweetheart. What's wrong? Did you two have a fight?" "No, ma'am. We didn't have a fight. I discovered that Brandon has been having an affair with his secretary for the past 6 months. I have proof." The color drained from the older woman's face. She looked from the ring to Simone, then toward the dance floor where her son was still standing inappropriately close to Rachel. "That's impossible. Brandon would never." "I have photographs, Mrs. Roberts. I have recordings of their phone conversations. I have hotel receipts and credit card statements." Simone's voice grew stronger with each word. "Your son has been living a double life, and I refuse to be part of it anymore." The ring fell into Eleanor's open palm with a tiny clink that somehow seemed to echo across the entire ballroom. 3 years earlier, Simone had been running late for a client meeting when she literally ran into Brandon Roberts outside the Starbucks on 5th Street. Her coffee had splashed across his expensive suit, and she had been mortified, apologizing profusely while trying to clean the stain with napkins. Instead of being angry, Brandon had laughed. "Well, this is one way to make an introduction," he had said, his brown eyes twinkling with amusement. I'm Brandon Roberts, and apparently you're my wake-up call that I needed to stop checking emails while walking. Simone had been immediately charmed by his easy humor. I'm Simone Clark, and I'm usually not this clumsy. Let me pay for your dry cleaning. Only if you let me buy you another coffee to replace the one that's now decorating my jacket. That coffee turned into a 2-hour conversation. Brandon was a junior partner at Roberts, Henderson and Associates, working his way up in corporate law. Simone was a marketing executive at Premier Creative Solutions, managing campaigns for major retail clients. They discovered they both loved jazz music, Italian food and old movies. Their first official date was the following Friday at Luigi's, a small Italian restaurant where Brandon had charmed the owner into giving them the best table despite not having a reservation. Simone had worn a simple black dress and felt underdressed when Brandon showed up in a perfectly tailored suit, but he made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the room. Tell me something about yourself that's not on your LinkedIn profile, he had said over candlelight and wine. I sing in my church choir, but only because my grandmother guilt-tripped me into it when I was 12, and now I'm too invested to quit, Simone had admitted, making him laugh. I collect vintage jazz records, and I have over 300 albums in my apartment, Brandon had confessed. My friends think it's weird, but there's something about the original pressings that digital music just can't capture. The chemistry between them was undeniable. Brandon was sophisticated and ambitious, everything Simone had been looking for in a partner. He opened doors, paid for dinners, and sent flowers to her office just because it was Tuesday. Her friends were impressed. Her mother adored him immediately. Their relationship progressed quickly but naturally. Within 6 months they were spending most nights together. Brandon would cook elaborate dinners while Simone graded marketing proposals from her home office. They would listen to his jazz collection and talk about their dreams. I want to make partner before I'm 35, Brandon had told her one evening as they lay in bed, her head on his chest. I want to build something that matters, you know? Leave a legacy. You will, Simone had assured him, tracing patterns on his skin with her finger. You're the most driven person I know. What about you? What do you want? I want to start my own agency someday. I have ideas about how marketing should work, campaigns that would actually connect with people instead of just trying to sell them things they don't need. Brandon had kissed the top of her head. We're going to conquer the world, Simone Clark. He met her family 6 months into their relationship. Her parents, Robert and Catherine Clark, welcomed him warmly into their Sunday dinner tradition. Her younger sister Denise teased him mercilessly but later told Simone he was definitely a keeper. Her grandmother, the family matriarch, pronounced him suitable after he complimented her sweet potato pie. Brandon integrated seamlessly into Simone's world. He remembered her friends' names, asked about her projects at work, and supported her when she decided to pursue an MBA part-time. When she had doubts about the program, he encouraged her to apply anyway. You're brilliant, Simone. Don't let fear hold you back from what you want. A year and a half into their relationship they moved in together. Brandon's downtown condo was spacious and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Simone brought her warmth to the space with plants, colorful throw pillows and family photos. They fell into comfortable routines. Sunday morning jazz brunches. Wednesday evening gym sessions. Friday date nights where they explored new restaurants or attended cultural events. Brandon was attentive and romantic, surprising her with weekend getaways and thoughtful gifts. I love how you make everything feel like an adventure, Simone had told him during a weekend trip to Napa Valley for their 2-year anniversary. That's because everything is an adventure with you, he had replied, pulling her close as they watched the sunset over the vineyards. The proposal came 8 months ago, exactly 2.5 years after their coffee shop collision. Brandon had planned an elaborate evening at the art museum where they had their third date. He had arranged for a private viewing of her favorite exhibit, complete with a jazz quartet playing softly in the background. Simone, he had said, dropping to one knee in front of a painting she loved, you've made every day brighter since you spilled coffee on me. Will you marry me? The ring was everything she had dreamed of, a classic solitaire setting with a brilliant cut diamond that caught the light perfectly. She had said yes through tears of joy, and he had spun her around in the empty gallery while the musicians played The Way You Look Tonight. The engagement photos were perfect. The wedding planning was going smoothly. Simone had found her dream dress, booked the perfect venue, and sent out save the dates to 200 guests. She was 3 weeks away from becoming Mrs. Brandon Roberts. Everything had seemed perfect. Too perfect as it turned out. The changes started small, so subtle that Simone initially dismissed them as wedding stress or work pressure. Brandon began staying later at the office, claiming that several high-profile cases demanded extra attention. He would text her around 8 o'clock saying he'd grab dinner near work instead of coming home to the meal she had prepared. "The Henderson merger is more complicated than we thought," he would explain when he finally got home around 11, looking tired and distant. "Sorry, babe. I know this is the worst time for me to be swamped." Simone understood. She was busy too, managing 3 major campaigns while planning their wedding. They were both successful professionals with demanding careers. This was just a rough patch. But then Brandon's phone behavior changed. The man who used to leave his phone on the kitchen counter while they watched movies now carried it everywhere. He would step onto the balcony to take calls, claiming it was work-related even on weekends. When notifications chimed during their conversations, he would quickly silence the phone without checking the message. "Everything okay?" Simone asked one Saturday morning when Brandon's phone rang during breakfast and he declined the call immediately. "Just work. They can wait until Monday." But his jaw was tense and he kept glancing at the silent phone throughout their meal. Their intimacy began to suffer. Brandon, who had always been affectionate and attentive, became distracted during their conversations. He would nod and make appropriate responses, but Simone could tell his mind was elsewhere. Their physical connection, once passionate and frequent, became routine and brief. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked one night after a particularly mechanical encounter. "You seem distant lately." "I'm fine, just stressed about the Morrison case. Once this settles down, everything will go back to normal." But normal never came. Instead, the distance grew wider. 3 months before their wedding, Simone noticed Brandon had started working out more frequently. He joined a new gym closer to his office, claiming it was more convenient for his schedule. He bought new cologne, updated his wardrobe with more fashionable suits, and started getting his hair cut at an expensive salon downtown. "Look at you trying to look good for me," Simone had teased, running her hands over his newly fitted shirt. "Always trying to look good for you," he had replied, but something in his tone felt rehearsed. The business trips increased. Brandon had always traveled occasionally for work, but suddenly he was needed in other cities almost every other week. Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas. Always for client meetings or depositions that required his specific expertise. "I hate being away from you so much," he would say while packing his suitcase. "After the wedding, I'm going to cut back on travel. I promise." Simone believed him because she wanted to believe him. Love made her rationalize every red flag, excuse every inconsistency. When their friends commented that Brandon seemed different, she defended him. When her sister Denise mentioned that he appeared uncomfortable at family gatherings, Simone blamed wedding stress. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in March. Simone had planned to surprise Brandon with dinner at his office. She knew he had been working late on the Patterson case, and she thought bringing his favorite Thai food might brighten his day. The law firm's building was nearly empty at 8:30 in the evening. The security guard recognized her and waved her through to the elevators. Brandon's office was on the 15th floor, and as the elevator climbed, Simone felt excited about surprising the man she loved. The elevator opened to reveal a dimly lit hallway. Most of the office lights were off, but she could see light coming from under Brandon's door. She could also hear voices, Brandon's voice and a woman's voice, speaking in low, intimate tones. Simone approached quietly, not wanting to interrupt what might be a client call. But as she got closer, she realized the conversation wasn't professional. "Can't keep doing this," the woman was saying. "It's getting harder to pretend." "I know," Brandon replied. "After the wedding, things will be different. We'll figure something out." "The wedding?" The woman's voice rose slightly. "Brandon, you're getting married in 3 months. It's complicated, Rachel. You know that." "Rachel." Simone's blood ran cold. Rachel Martinez was Brandon's secretary, a petite brunette in her late 20s who had always been friendly but professional during their brief interactions. "I can't be the other woman forever," Rachel continued. "I love you, but this situation is killing me. You're not the other woman. Simone, what we have is different. It's real." Simone's hands began to shake, the bag of Thai food trembling in her grip. She pressed herself against the wall, desperate to hear more but terrified of what she might discover. "Then why are you marrying her?" There was a long pause. "Because it's what's expected. My family, the firm partners, everyone expects this wedding. But you and I both know where my heart really is." Simone heard movement in the office, the sound of a chair creaking. She imagined Brandon pulling Rachel into his arms, the way he used to hold her when she was upset. "I have to go," Rachel said softly. "This is too hard." Footsteps approached the door. Simone panicked, rushing to the elevator and hitting the button frantically. The elevator arrived just as Brandon's office door opened, and she slipped inside without being seen. As the elevator descended, Simone stared at her reflection in the polished metal doors. The woman looking back at her was a stranger, hollow-eyed, pale, clutching a bag of Thai food that had grown cold while her world fell apart. Simone sat in her car in the law firm's parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at the Thai food that had cost $43 and now seemed like evidence of her own stupidity. Her hands shook as she tried to process what she had heard. The conversation replayed in her mind like a broken record, each word cutting deeper than the last. "You're not the other woman. What we have is different. It's real." She drove home in a daze, muscle memory navigating the familiar route while her mind reeled. When she reached their condo, she sat in the parking space next to Brandon's empty spot and tried to think rationally. Maybe she had misunderstood. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe there was an explanation that didn't involve her fiancé cheating with his secretary. But deep down she knew the truth. All those late nights, mysterious phone calls, and business trips suddenly made perfect sense. The new cologne, the updated wardrobe, the emotional distance. Brandon was having an affair. She went upstairs and poured herself a glass of wine with trembling hands. Then she did something she had never done in 3 years of relationship. She went through Brandon's things. His laptop was password protected, but she knew his patterns. He used variations of important dates and names. After several attempts, she tried Rachel 2023, and the screen unlocked. Her stomach lurched. Using his mistress's name as a password was almost more insulting than the affair itself. The email folder marked personal contained months of correspondence between Brandon and Rachel. Love letters, basically. Intimate messages about their feelings for each other, complaints about having to hide their relationship, and detailed discussions about their secret rendezvous. One email from Rachel, dated 2 weeks ago, made Simone's blood boil. "Brandon, I can't watch you marry someone else while pretending everything is normal. Either you choose me or I'm finding a new job and moving on with my life. I love you, but I won't be anyone's secret forever." Brandon's response, sent the same day. "Rachel, you know how I feel about you. You're the love of my life, but the wedding is just a formality at this point. Too many people would be hurt if I called it off now. Give me time to figure this out. After we're married, I'll find a way to be with you properly. I promise. B." Simone ran to the bathroom and vomited. The man she loved, the man she had planned to spend her life with, was promising his secretary that their marriage would be a sham while he continued his real relationship on the side. She spent the rest of the night reading through their correspondence, torturing herself with details but unable to stop. The affair had been going on for 7 months. They had taken weekend trips together while Brandon told Simone he was at legal conferences. They had shared intimate dinners at expensive restaurants while she waited at home with takeout containers. Most painfully, Rachel's messages revealed that she genuinely believed Brandon would eventually leave Simone for her. The other woman wasn't some calculating villain trying to break up a happy couple. She was in love with a man who was lying to both of them. Brandon came home at midnight as he had for weeks. "Sorry, babe. The Patterson case is killing me. How was your evening?" Simone looked at him from the couch where she had been sitting in the dark, and saw a stranger. This man who could lie so easily, who could kiss her goodnight while planning his future with someone else, was not the person she thought she knew. "It was fine," she replied, her voice surprisingly steady. "I missed you at dinner." He kissed the top of her head, the same casual gesture he had made thousands of times before, but now it felt like a mockery. "I'll make it up to you this weekend. Maybe we can finally pick out those wedding favors you've been talking about." Wedding favors. For a wedding that he was apparently treating as a formality, before running off with his secretary. The next morning, after Brandon left for work, Simone called in sick and drove to the office of a private investigator her divorce attorney friend had recommended years earlier. Harris Investigations occupied a modest suite in a downtown office building, far from the glamorous detective agencies portrayed in movies. Detective Lisa Harris was a former police officer in her 50s, professional and direct. She listened to Simone's story without judgment, taking notes in a plain notebook. "I need proof," Simone said. "I need documentation that will hold up in court if necessary." "Are you planning to divorce him?" "I don't know yet. I just need to know the truth. All of it." Detective Harris quoted her a fee that made Simone wince, but she wrote the check anyway. "How long will this take?" "If he's as careless as most cheating spouses, probably a week. Men in love tend to take stupid risks." Detective Harris was right. 5 days later, she called Simone with an update. "We've got everything you need. Photos, audio recordings, documentation of hotel stays, restaurant receipts. Do you want me to put together a comprehensive report? Yes. And I want copies of everything. The report arrived the following Monday in a plain manila envelope. 47 photographs showed Brandon and Rachel in various compromising situations. Holding hands while walking into hotels. Kissing in restaurant booths. Embracing in parking garages. The images were date-stamped, creating a timeline of their relationship that coincided exactly with Brandon's increasing distance from Simone. The audio recordings, captured through sophisticated surveillance equipment, contained conversations that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Brandon telling Rachel he loved her. Rachel asking when he would leave Simone. Both of them discussing their future together as if Simone's feelings didn't matter at all. The financial documentation showed a pattern of deception. Hotel rooms booked under Brandon's name but paid for with a credit card Simone didn't know existed. Expensive dinners at romantic restaurants on nights when he claimed to be working late. Jewelry purchases from stores that specialized in gifts for mistresses. As Simone spread the evidence across her dining room table, she felt something unexpected. Relief. For months she had questioned her instincts, wondered if she was being paranoid or insecure. Now she had confirmation that her suspicions were justified. Her phone rang. Brandon's name appeared on the screen. Hey babe, I'm going to be late again tonight. The Morrison deposition got moved up and we need to prep. Simone looked at a photograph of Brandon and Rachel kissing passionately outside the Marriott downtown. The date stamp showed it was taken yesterday evening, during his supposed client dinner. No problem, she said calmly. I'll see you when you get home. After ending the call, Simone gathered all the evidence and put it back in the envelope. She had decisions to make, and she needed to think clearly about her next move. One thing was certain. Brandon Roberts had made the biggest mistake of his life. Simone spent 3 days in a strange state of calm determination. She went to work, managed her campaigns, attended meetings, and smiled at her colleagues' wedding-related questions, all while the evidence of Brandon's betrayal sat locked in her home safe. But beneath her composed exterior, her mind was working with laser focus. She had two choices: confront Brandon privately or expose him publicly. The private confrontation would be cleaner, less messy for everyone involved. She could break off the engagement quietly, return the ring, and walk away with her dignity intact. But that option felt like letting him off too easy. Brandon had spent 7 months lying to her face. He had used her trust as a shield while conducting his affair. He had planned to marry her while promising another woman that their marriage would be meaningless. He deserved consequences that matched the scale of his deception. The engagement party was scheduled for Saturday evening at the Grand Ballroom downtown. 200 guests, including Brandon's law partners, his wealthy clients, and both their families. It would be the perfect stage for revealing the truth about Brandon Roberts. Thursday evening, Simone drove to her sister Denise's apartment in Midtown. Her younger sister was a graphic designer with a sharp tongue and an even sharper sense of justice. If anyone would support Simone's plan for revenge, it would be Denise. I knew something was wrong with him, Denise said after reviewing the evidence. She held up a photograph of Brandon and Rachel sharing dessert at an upscale restaurant. Look at how he's looking at her. He's never looked at you like that. Thanks for the confidence boost, Simone said dryly. I'm serious. This isn't the look of a man having a fling. He's in love with her. Denise set down the photo. What are you going to do? Simone outlined her plan. She would attend the engagement party as if nothing had happened. During the traditional toasts and speeches portion of the evening, she would stand up and make an announcement. But instead of thanking everyone for celebrating their love, she would expose Brandon's affair with evidence projected on the ballroom's large screens. That's nuclear, Denise said approvingly. I like it. What can I do to help? I need someone to handle the technical aspects. Can you set up a presentation that will display the photos and play the audio recordings? Consider it done. Anything else? I need you to make sure Mom and Dad are prepared. I don't want them to be blindsided when this happens. Denise nodded. They'll be hurt that you didn't tell them sooner, but they'll understand once they see what Brandon did to you. Friday afternoon, Simone met with her best friend Natasha at their favorite coffee shop. Natasha Williams had been her closest friend since college, and Simone needed at least one ally at the party who knew what was coming. Girl, are you absolutely sure about this? Natasha asked after hearing the plan. Once you do this, there's no going back. Brandon will be ruined. He ruined himself, Simone replied firmly. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. What about Rachel? She's going to be destroyed too. Simone had wrestled with this aspect of her plan. Rachel was also a victim of Brandon's lies, believing his promises about a future together. But she had also made the choice to get involved with an engaged man. She deserved consequences for that decision. Rachel made her choice when she decided to sleep with my fiancé, Simone said. I'm not responsible for protecting her from the results of her own actions. Natasha studied her friend's face carefully. You've changed, Simone. This isn't like you. The old me trusted the wrong person and almost married a liar. The new me isn't going to make that mistake again. That evening, Simone had dinner with Brandon for what she knew would be the last time. He was in a good mood, excited about the engagement party and full of plans for their honeymoon in Italy. I've been thinking we should extend the trip, he said over pasta at their usual restaurant. Maybe spend an extra week in Rome. We both deserve a real vacation after all this wedding stress. Simone nodded and made appropriate responses, marveling at how easily the lies flowed from his mouth. According to the private investigator's report, Brandon had promised Rachel a romantic weekend in Rome next month, supposedly for a client meeting. I love you, Simone, Brandon said as they walked to their car after dinner. I know I've been distracted lately, but after tomorrow night, everything will be perfect. He was right about one thing. After tomorrow night, everything would be different. Saturday morning, Simone got her hair and makeup done as planned. She wore the navy blue cocktail dress she had chosen months earlier, before she knew it would be her breakup outfit instead of her engagement celebration dress. She looked beautiful and she wanted Brandon to see exactly what he was losing. At noon, she met Denise at the ballroom to set up the technical equipment. The presentation was loaded onto the venue system, ready to be activated with a single click. 47 photographs of Brandon's affair, 12 audio recordings, and financial documentation that proved the timeline of his deception. Are you ready for this? Denise asked as they tested the equipment one final time. Simone looked around the ballroom, beautifully decorated with white roses and gold accents. In a few hours, this elegant space would witness the destruction of Brandon Roberts' carefully constructed life. I've never been more ready for anything, she replied. Saturday afternoon, 2 hours before the engagement party, Simone sat in her childhood bedroom at her parents' house, surrounded by the women who mattered most to her. Her mother Catherine, her sister Denise, and her best friend Natasha had gathered for what was supposed to be a pre-party celebration. Instead, it had become a war council. I still can't believe that boy had the nerve to look me in the eye and lie, Catherine Clark said, her voice shaking with anger. She held one of the photographs showing Brandon and Rachel in an intimate embrace outside a downtown hotel. I trusted him with my daughter's heart. Robert Clark, Simone's father, paced the small room like a caged animal. He had been quiet since Simone revealed the truth an hour earlier, but his hands were clenched into fists. I should go over there right now and tell him what I think of him. Dad, no, Simone said firmly. This has to happen my way. Brandon thinks he's so smart, thinks he can manipulate everyone around him. Tonight, he learns that he's not as clever as he thinks. Her grandmother, 80-year-old Dorothy Clark, sat in the corner armchair with her hands folded in her lap. She had lived through enough family drama to recognize the signs of a woman seeking justice. Baby girl, are you sure about this public approach? Sometimes it's better to let people destroy themselves privately. Grandma, he was going to marry me while planning a future with another woman. He deserves public humiliation. Dorothy nodded slowly. Then you do what you need to do. But remember, revenge is a dish best served with dignity. Don't let his actions turn you into someone you won't recognize in the mirror tomorrow. Natasha was busy on her laptop, coordinating with Denise about the technical aspects of the evening's presentation. The audio files are crystal clear, she reported. Everyone in that ballroom is going to hear Brandon telling Rachel that marrying you is just a formality. Good, Simone said. She felt surprisingly calm for someone about to detonate her own life. What about the timing? Right after dinner, during the toast portion of the evening, Denise explained. Brandon's best man will speak first, then his father, then it's your turn. That's when we'll switch from your prepared remarks to the real presentation. Catherine looked at her eldest daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Are you absolutely certain about this, sweetheart? Once you do this, there's no taking it back. Brandon's reputation will be destroyed. His reputation should be destroyed, Mom. He's a liar and a cheat who was about to commit fraud by marrying me under false pretenses. The conversation was interrupted by a knock on the bedroom door. Robert opened it to find Simone's cousin Marcus, who had driven in from Atlanta for the engagement party. Marcus, what are you doing here early? Catherine asked. Marcus stepped into the room, his expression serious. I came to warn Simone about something I saw at the hotel. I was checking in for tonight when I saw Brandon in the lobby with a woman who definitely wasn't Simone. The room fell silent. Simone realized that Brandon was still carrying on his affair even hours before their engagement party. What did you see exactly? She asked. They were at the hotel bar, sitting close together, holding hands. She was crying and he was comforting her. It looked intimate. I almost went over to say something, but I thought maybe there was an explanation. Natasha pulled up the private investigator's photos on her laptop. Is this the woman you saw? Marcus examined the screen and nodded. That's her. Who is she? Rachel Martinez. Brandon's secretary. Also his mistress for the past 7 months. Marcus's jaw dropped. Oh, Simone. I'm so sorry. I should have said something immediately. You're saying something now and that's what matters, Simone replied. She turned to her family and friends. This confirms that Brandon has no intention of ending his affair. Even today, hours before our engagement party, he's still choosing her over me. The evidence of Brandon's continued deception seemed to galvanize everyone in the room. Even Catherine, who had been wavering about the public humiliation plan, now looked determined. What do you need us to do? Robert asked. Simone outlined her expectations for the evening. Her family would act normally until the moment of truth. They would smile, make small talk, and play their parts in the charade. When she stood up to make her announcement, they should be prepared for the chaos that would follow. Brandon's going to deny everything at first, she predicted. He'll claim the evidence is fake or taken out of context. But the audio recordings will make denial impossible. What about his family? Catherine asked. Eleanor Roberts is a good woman. This is going to devastate her. Simone had thought about Brandon's mother extensively. Eleanor had always treated her kindly, and she genuinely didn't deserve to be humiliated. But she also deserved to know the truth about her son. I'm going to tell Mrs. Roberts first, privately, before the public announcement. She needs to hear it from me, not from a presentation screen. Denise checked her watch. We need to start getting ready. The party starts in 2 hours. As everyone began to disperse, Dorothy approached Simone. Walk with me to the garden, child. They stepped outside into Catherine's carefully tended backyard. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the rose bushes that had been blooming since Simone was a little girl. Your grandfather cheated on me once, Dorothy said quietly. This was back in 1967 when you just didn't talk about such things openly. Simone was shocked. Her grandparents had seemed like the perfect couple until her grandfather's death 5 years earlier. What did you do? I confronted him privately and he ended the affair. We went to counseling and we worked through it. But our situation was different from yours, baby girl. How so? Your grandfather was genuinely remorseful. He admitted his mistake and spent the next 50 years making it up to me. Brandon doesn't sound remorseful at all. He sounds like a man who wants to have his cake and eat it too. Dorothy took Simone's hands in her weathered ones. I'm not telling you this to change your mind about tonight. I'm telling you this so you'll know that not all men who make mistakes are worth forgiving. Some are just selfish boys who never learned how to be honorable men. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're doing the only thing that will let you sleep at night, Dorothy replied. And sometimes that's all we can ask for. 2 hours later, Simone stood in front of her bedroom mirror, applying the final touches to her makeup. She looked beautiful and composed, ready for battle. Her navy blue dress fit perfectly, her jewelry sparkled in the lamplight, and her hair was styled in an elegant updo that showcased the earrings Brandon had given her for Christmas. Tonight, those earrings would be the last gifts she would ever accept from him. Her phone buzzed with a text from Brandon. Can't wait to see my beautiful fiancé tonight. I love you. Simone stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. In 3 hours, Brandon Roberts would learn that lies eventually catch up with everyone. The grand ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton had been transformed into an elegant celebration of love and commitment. White roses cascaded from crystal centerpieces, soft lighting created an intimate atmosphere, and the jazz quartet Brandon had hired played softly in the corner. 200 guests mingled with cocktails, celebrating what they believed was the upcoming union of two people deeply in love. Simone arrived fashionably late as planned. She wanted to make an entrance, to ensure that everyone saw her looking radiant and confident before they learned the truth about her fiancé. The navy blue cocktail dress hugged her curves perfectly, and she had chosen her jewelry carefully, everything Brandon had given her over the years. Tonight she would give it all back. Simone, darling, you look absolutely stunning, Eleanor Roberts said as she approached the entrance. Brandon's mother was elegant in her champagne-colored gown, beaming with maternal pride. "Brandon is so lucky to have found you." The irony of those words hit Simone like a physical blow. "Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. You look beautiful as well. Have you seen my son? He's been asking for you." "I'm sure I'll find him soon," Simone replied, scanning the room. She spotted Brandon near the bar, impeccably dressed in his black tuxedo, surrounded by his law firm partners. He looked handsome and successful, every inch the perfect catch. The sight of him still made her heart race, but now it was with anger instead of love. Natasha appeared at her elbow, stunning in her emerald green dress. "You ready for this?" "More than ready," Simone murmured, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Is everything set up?" Denise confirmed that all the technical equipment is ready. One click and Brandon's whole world changes. Across the room, Simone spotted Rachel Martinez near the chocolate fountain, wearing a black dress that was inappropriately sexy for a work event. She was talking to several other employees from Brandon's firm, playing the role of the professional secretary attending her boss's engagement party. The performance was almost impressive. "The audacity," Natasha whispered, following Simone's gaze. "She's actually here." "Of course she's here. Brandon probably insisted she come to maintain appearances. Can't have people thinking something's wrong if his secretary suddenly stops attending firm events." Brandon noticed Simone's arrival and made his way across the room, his face lighting up with what appeared to be genuine joy. For a moment she almost doubted the evidence sitting in the manila envelope upstairs. This man approaching her with such obvious love couldn't possibly be the same person who had been lying to her for months. But then she remembered the audio recordings, the hotel receipts, and the photographs of him kissing another woman. "There's my beautiful bride-to-be," Brandon said, taking her hands and kissing her cheek. "You look incredible tonight." "Thank you. You look very handsome yourself." The words came easily, muscle memory from 3 years of loving this man. "I have some people I want you to meet," Brandon said, guiding her toward a group of distinguished older men. "The senior partners from our sister firm in Chicago." Simone allowed herself to be led around the room, making polite conversation with Brandon's colleagues and clients. She smiled and nodded as they discussed the wedding, their honeymoon plans, and their bright future together. Several people commented on how perfect they seemed as a couple. "You can tell they're truly in love," one of Brandon's clients observed. "It's refreshing to see genuine happiness in young people these days." Simone's smile felt like it might crack her face, but she maintained her composure. Across the room she caught Rachel watching them with poorly concealed longing. The other woman's face revealed everything. She was in love with Brandon and struggling to watch him play the devoted fiancé. At least she's suffering too, Simone thought with bitter satisfaction. Dinner was served at 8 o'clock. Simone found herself seated at the head table between Brandon and his father, directly facing the room full of guests. The positioning was perfect for what she had planned. Everyone would have a clear view of her when she stood to make her announcement. The meal was exquisite filet mignon, roasted vegetables, and a chocolate mousse that Simone couldn't taste through her anxiety. Brandon was animated and charming, regaling the table with stories about his latest legal victories. His hand rested possessively on her thigh under the table, a gesture that once would have thrilled her but now made her skin crawl. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," Brandon announced to the table during the main course. "It means everything to Simone and me to have our families and friends here to celebrate with us." "We're so happy for you both," said Brandon's Aunt Margaret. "You make such a beautiful couple." Simone caught sight of Rachel at a table near the back of the room, picking at her food and looking miserable. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded ballroom, and Simone saw recognition in the other woman's face. Rachel knew that she knew. Good, Simone thought. Let her sweat. As dessert was served, the evening's program began. Brandon's best friend from law school stood up to make the first toast, sharing embarrassing stories about Brandon's dating life before he met Simone. The crowd laughed and applauded, enjoying the light-hearted roast. Next, Robert Clark rose to speak about his daughter. "Simone has always been a remarkable young woman," he said, his voice slightly strained. "She deserves nothing but love, honesty, and respect from the man she chooses to marry." The emphasis on honesty wasn't lost on anyone who knew the truth. Simone squeezed her father's hand gratefully as he sat back down. Brandon's father spoke next, welcoming Simone to the Roberts family and praising her intelligence and kindness. "Brandon has chosen well," he concluded. "We're proud to call Simone our daughter." Then it was Simone's turn. She stood slowly, her heart pounding but her hands steady. The room fell quiet as 200 guests turned their attention to the beautiful bride-to-be. Her champagne glass trembled slightly, but her voice was clear and strong. "Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate with Brandon and me," she began, exactly as she had rehearsed. "Your love and support mean everything to us." She paused, scanning the room one final time. Her family members watched with tense expressions, knowing what was coming. Natasha had her phone ready to signal Denise. Rachel had gone pale, perhaps sensing that something was wrong. Brandon smiled up at her adoringly, completely oblivious to the bomb she was about to detonate. "Before we go any further with this celebration," Simone continued, "I think there's something everyone should know about the man I was planning to marry." The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. Something in her tone suggested this wasn't going to be a typical romantic speech. Brandon's smile faltered. "Simone, what are you doing?" She looked down at him with ice-cold composure. "I'm telling the truth, Brandon. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do." "Ladies and gentlemen," Simone continued, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent ballroom, "I discovered 3 days ago that Brandon has been having an affair with his secretary Rachel Martinez for the past 7 months. The words hit the room like a physical force. Gasps echoed from every table. Brandon's face went white, then flushed red as conversations erupted around them. "Simone, stop this right now," Brandon hissed, starting to rise from his chair. "Sit down," she commanded, her tone so authoritative that he actually obeyed. "I'm not finished." She looked toward the back of the room where Denise was stationed near the audiovisual equipment. Her sister nodded and clicked the laptop. The large screens positioned around the ballroom flickered to life. The first image appeared, Brandon and Rachel holding hands while entering the Marriott downtown. The timestamp showed it was taken just 5 days earlier. "Oh my God," Eleanor Roberts whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "This is ridiculous," Brandon said, finding his voice. "Those photos could be from anything. Business meetings, client." His words died as the next photograph appeared. Brandon and Rachel kissing passionately in the parking garage of his office building. "Business meeting?" Simone asked mockingly. "Let's see what else we have." More photos flashed on the screens. Brandon and Rachel sharing intimate dinners. Embracing outside hotel rooms. Walking hand in hand through parks. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Rachel had stood up from her table, her face stricken with horror. Several of her colleagues were staring at her in shock. She started moving toward the exit, but Simone's voice stopped her. "Don't leave yet, Rachel. This concerns you too." The audio began playing through the ballroom's sound system. Brandon's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. "Rachel, you know how I feel about you. You're the love of my life, but the wedding is just a formality at this point. Too many people would be hurt if I called it off now." A collective gasp rose from the guests. Eleanor Roberts made a sound like a wounded animal. Brandon's father's face had turned purple with rage. Brandon jumped to his feet. "This is fake. Someone has manipulated these recordings." "Really?" Simone asked calmly. "Let's hear some more." Rachel's voice came through the speakers. "I can't be the other woman forever. I love you, but this situation is killing me." Brandon's response, "You're not the other woman. Simone, what we have is different. It's real." The ballroom erupted in chaos. Voices rose in anger, shock, and indignation. Brandon's colleagues looked mortified. Several of Simone's relatives were shouting at Brandon. Rachel was crying openly, still frozen near her table. "Brandon Roberts," Simone said, her voice cutting through the noise, "you are a liar, a cheat, and a coward. You were planning to marry me while promising another woman that our marriage would be meaningless." She removed her engagement ring and held it up for everyone to see. "This ring represents trust, commitment, and love. You have violated all three." Brandon made a desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Simone, please, we can work this out. This is all a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Simone's voice rose with fury. "You call 7 months of affair a misunderstanding? You call promising Rachel a future with you while lying to my face a misunderstanding?" She turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for ruining what was supposed to be a celebration. But I refuse to marry a man who has so little respect for me, for you, and for the institution of marriage itself." Eleanor Roberts rose from her chair, tears streaming down her face. She walked slowly toward the head table, her elegant composure completely shattered. "Brandon," she said, her voice breaking, "how could you do this to Simone? How could you embarrass our family like this?" "Mom, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you're exactly like your father was?" The words were like a slap. Everyone in the room knew that Brandon's father had been unfaithful to Eleanor years earlier, though they had worked through it privately. "I thought I raised you better than this." Simone walked around the table and approached Eleanor. "Mrs. Roberts, I want you to have this back." She placed the engagement ring in the older woman's palm. "Your son is going to need it for his next fiancée. Assuming he can find someone who doesn't know what kind of man he really is." Eleanor looked at the ring, then at her son, then back at Simone. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. You deserved so much better than this." "Yes, I did," Simone agreed. The presentation continued with financial documents showing Brandon's secret credit card, used to fund his affair. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, and jewelry purchases for Rachel while he was supposedly working late. The evidence painted a picture of systematic deception that had cost thousands of dollars. "That's my money too," Simone told the room. "Our joint account paid for his affair. He used our wedding fund to buy gifts for his mistress." Several of Brandon's law partners were having heated discussions at their tables. The managing partner, William Henderson, looked like he was considering how this scandal might affect the firm's reputation. Rachel finally found her voice. "Simone, I never meant for this to happen. Brandon told me you two were having problems, that the engagement was just for show." "Stop," Simone cut her off. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You chose to get involved with an engaged man. You chose to believe his lies instead of verifying the truth. You made your decisions and now you get to live with the consequences." Brandon made one last desperate play. "Simone, I love you. This thing with Rachel, it was a mistake. We can get past this. We can postpone the wedding and work through it." Simone looked at him with genuine pity. "Brandon, you don't love me. If you loved me, you never would have done this. You love the idea of me. You love having a beautiful, successful woman on your arm who makes you look good to your colleagues and clients. But you don't love me as a person." She addressed the room one final time. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm sorry you had to witness this, but I hope it serves as a reminder that some people are not who they pretend to be." Simone picked up her purse and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the ballroom descended into chaos. Voices rose in angry confrontations. Rachel was sobbing. Brandon was trying to explain himself to anyone who would listen. At the doorway, Simone turned back for one last look. Brandon was standing alone at the head table, his perfect tuxedo somehow looking rumpled despite being immaculate. He looked smaller than she remembered, diminished by the exposure of his true character. "Goodbye, Brandon," she said quietly, though he was too far away to hear her. Then she walked out of the grand ballroom and into the rest of her life. The week following the engagement party felt surreal, like living in the eye of a hurricane. While Simone moved through her days with surprising calm, the storm she had unleashed continued to rage around her. Monday morning brought the first wave of consequences. Simone arrived at her office to find 17 missed calls on her work phone and 43 text messages on her personal device. The story had spread through their social circles like wildfire, with varying degrees of accuracy and embellishment. Her assistant, Jennifer, greeted her with a mixture of concern and poorly concealed curiosity. "Simone, there have been several reporters calling for you this morning. Something about your engagement party?" "Reporters?" Simone was genuinely surprised. She hadn't expected media interest in what she considered a personal matter. Apparently someone posted video clips on social media. The story is trending locally under the hashtag #EngagementPartyRevenge. Simone sank into her office chair and pulled up Twitter on her computer. Sure enough, several attendees had recorded portions of her confrontation with Brandon. The videos showed her standing composed and dignified while delivering devastating revelations about his affair. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. "She handled that with such class," read one comment with hundreds of likes. "That's how you expose a cheater, with receipts and dignity." "This woman is my hero," read another. "No screaming, no violence, just stone-cold facts. Brandon Roberts got exactly what he deserved." Her phone rang. The caller ID showed her mother's number. "Simone, sweetheart, how are you holding up?" Catherine's voice was filled with maternal concern. "I'm okay, Mom. Better than okay, actually. I feel free. The phone has been ringing all morning. Everyone wants to know if you're all right. Mrs. Patterson from church called to say she's proud of how you handled yourself. Even your Aunt Gloria called from Detroit to offer support." Simone smiled despite herself. Aunt Gloria was the family's toughest critic. If she approved of the public confrontation, Simone had definitely made the right choice. "What about the Roberts family? Have you heard anything from them?" Catherine's voice grew sad. "Eleanor called this morning. She wanted to apologize again and to tell you that she's asked Brandon to move out of the family home temporarily. She's devastated, honey. She truly loved you like a daughter. The mention of Eleanor's pain gave Simone a pang of guilt, but she pushed it aside. Eleanor's hurt was Brandon's responsibility, not hers. She had simply revealed the truth. He was the one who had created the situation. Tuesday brought news from Brandon's law firm. According to Natasha, who had connections in the legal community, Brandon was facing an internal investigation. His affair with a subordinate violated the firm's ethics policies, and there were questions about whether he had used company resources to facilitate the relationship. I heard from my friend at Henderson and Associates, Natasha reported during their lunch meeting. Brandon's been put on administrative leave pending a full review. The managing partners are furious about the negative publicity. Good, Simone said without hesitation. Actions have consequences. What about Rachel? What about her? I heard she was fired yesterday. Simone felt a moment of satisfaction, followed immediately by guilt. Rachel had been wrong to get involved with Brandon, but she had also been deceived by his lies. Her career was now destroyed because of her poor judgment in trusting the wrong man. She made her choice, Simone said finally. I'm not responsible for the fallout from other people's decisions. Wednesday evening brought an unexpected visitor. Simone was at home, finally going through Brandon's belongings to pack them for removal, when her doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole to see Eleanor Roberts standing in the hallway, looking older and more fragile than she had just 5 days earlier. Mrs. Roberts, Simone said as she opened the door. I wasn't expecting you. I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I brought Brandon's things. Eleanor gestured to several boxes in the hallway. I thought it would be easier if I handled the exchange rather than him coming here. Simone helped Eleanor bring the boxes inside. They sat in the living room where Brandon had proposed to her 8 months earlier, surrounded by the remnants of their relationship. I want you to know that I don't blame you for what happened Saturday, Eleanor said quietly. You had every right to expose Brandon's behavior. I'm just sorry you had to go through that pain. Thank you for saying that. I was worried you might hate me for humiliating your son publicly. Eleanor's laugh was bitter. Brandon humiliated himself. You just made sure everyone knew about it. She paused, looking around the elegant condo. You know, I suspected something was wrong months ago. Brandon seemed different, distracted. But I told myself it was work stress or wedding nerves. I did the same thing, Simone admitted. I made excuses for every red flag because I wanted to believe in us. We mothers always want to think the best of our children. But sometimes they grow up to be people we don't recognize. Eleanor's voice broke slightly. I thought I had raised him to be honorable, to treat women with respect. His father and I had our problems, but Brandon knew how much infidelity hurt our family. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, two women bonded by their shared disappointment in Brandon Roberts. What will you do now? Eleanor asked. I'm not sure yet. I need some time to figure out who I am without Brandon in my life. But I'm not afraid of starting over. You're a remarkable woman, Simone. You handled that situation with more grace than I would have managed at your age. Eleanor stood to leave. I hope you find someone who deserves you. After Eleanor left, Simone continued packing Brandon's belongings. Each item told the story of their relationship. The jazz albums he had introduced her to, the coffee maker he had insisted they needed, the expensive cologne that now seemed like evidence of his vanity. At the bottom of his nightstand drawer, she found a small velvet box she didn't recognize. Inside was a pair of diamond earrings, clearly expensive and definitely not anything he had ever given her. For Rachel, she realized. Another gift for his mistress, purchased with their joint funds. Instead of anger, Simone felt only pity. This was what Brandon's love looked like. Secret gifts, hidden relationships, and elaborate lies. She had dodged a bullet by discovering his true character before they were legally bound together. Thursday morning brought a call from Detective Harris, the private investigator who had gathered the evidence against Brandon. I wanted to let you know that I've been contacted by the State Bar Association, Harris said. They're investigating Brandon's conduct. Using client funds to pay for personal expenses, including his affair, could result in disbarment. Client funds. Simone was confused. The credit card he used for the affair expenses? It was linked to his firm's client account. Technically, he was stealing from clients to fund his relationship with Rachel. Simone sat down heavily. Brandon's ethical violations were worse than she had realized. He hadn't just cheated on her. He had committed professional misconduct that could end his career permanently. I thought you should know since your evidence is part of their case file now, Harris continued. After ending the call, Simone realized that her public confrontation had unleashed consequences far beyond what she had intended. Brandon wasn't just facing personal embarrassment, his entire future was in jeopardy. For the first time since the engagement party, she felt a flicker of doubt. Had she gone too far? But then she remembered the audio recording of Brandon telling Rachel that their marriage would be just a formality. She remembered the months of lies, the stolen money, and the complete disregard for her feelings. No, she decided. Brandon had created this situation through his own choices. She had simply refused to be a victim of those choices. By Friday, Simone felt ready to face the future. She had cleaned Brandon out of her condo, changed the locks, and started making plans for her new life. The wedding venue had been canceled, deposits forfeited. The dress would be donated to charity. The honeymoon reservations had been transferred to her and Natasha for a girls' trip to Italy. You seem different, Natasha observed during their Friday night dinner. Stronger somehow. I feel different, Simone admitted. For 3 years, I defined myself partly through my relationship with Brandon. Now I get to figure out who I am on my own terms. Any regrets about how you handled things? Simone considered the question carefully. I regret that Brandon turned out to be someone I couldn't respect. I regret that I trusted him for as long as I did. But I don't regret exposing him. Some people only learn from public consequences. As they walked home through the city streets, Simone felt lighter than she had in months. The weight of Brandon's deception was gone, replaced by the exhilarating freedom of possibility. She was 29 years old, financially independent, professionally successful, and finally free to find someone who would love her honestly. The future had never looked brighter. 6 months after the engagement party that ended her relationship with Brandon Roberts, Simone Clark stood in the conference room of her new office, looking out at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Clark Creative Solutions occupied the entire 15th floor of a downtown building, complete with an open workspace design, state-of-the-art equipment, and a team of 12 talented employees. The Morrison campaign exceeded projections by 30%, her business partner and creative director, James Washington, reported during their weekly team meeting. Client satisfaction scores are through the roof. Simone smiled, feeling a familiar surge of pride and accomplishment. Starting her own marketing agency had been terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. She had used her savings, taken out a business loan, and convinced 3 of her former colleagues to join her in the venture. 6 months later, they were profitable and growing rapidly. The success of the Morrison campaign proves that our approach works, Simone told her team. Authentic storytelling resonates with consumers better than traditional advertising gimmicks. People want to connect with brands that understand their values and experiences. After the meeting, James lingered in the conference room. Dr. James Washington was a successful pediatrician who had consulted with Simone's agency on a healthcare campaign 3 months earlier. Their professional relationship had evolved into friendship and lately, something deeper. Dinner tonight? He asked, his warm brown eyes twinkling with affection. I'd like that, Simone replied, still amazed by how easy everything felt with James. There were no games, no hidden agendas, no elaborate deceptions. He was straightforward, honest, and genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. They had met during the most chaotic period of her life, just weeks after the engagement party scandal when she was still dealing with the fallout from Brandon's behavior. James had been contracted to advise on a campaign promoting children's health initiatives, and his dedication to his young patients had immediately impressed her. You care about making a real difference, she had observed after watching him interact with families at a community health fair. Children deserve advocates who will fight for them, he had replied simply. They can't protect themselves from adult failures. The comment had resonated deeply with Simone, who was still processing her own experience with adult failure and betrayal. Their first official date had been 2 months ago, a simple dinner at a neighborhood restaurant where they talked for 4 hours about everything except her past relationship drama. James knew about Brandon and the public breakup. Everyone in their social circle did, but he never pressed for details or treated her like damaged goods. Your past relationships don't define who you are now, he had told her when she finally opened up about her trust issues. I'm interested in getting to know the woman you are today, not the woman you were with someone else. That evening they went to Chen's Garden, a small Chinese restaurant that had become their regular spot. The owner, Mrs. Chen, always greeted them warmly and insisted on bringing extra dumplings for the beautiful couple. How was your day at the hospital? Simone asked over sweet and sour chicken. Busy but good. We had a 6-year-old come in with a broken arm from falling off her bike. She was more worried about missing her soccer game than the pain. Kids are so resilient. Simone loved listening to James talk about his work. His compassion and dedication reminded her why she had been drawn to him in the first place. Unlike Brandon, who had often dominated conversations with stories about his legal victories and professional achievements, James was genuinely interested in hearing about her day. What about you? How did the Henderson Industries presentation go? They loved it. We should have a signed contract by Friday. Simone paused, then added, I've been thinking about expanding our team. Maybe hiring another account manager. That's fantastic. You've built something amazing, Simone. The compliment warmed her heart. James supported her ambitions without trying to manage or control them. He celebrated her successes genuinely, without any underlying competitiveness or resentment. After dinner, they walked through the park where Simone and Brandon had once jogged together on Sunday mornings. The memory no longer stung. Instead, she felt grateful for the contrast between her past and present relationships. I have something to tell you, James said as they sat on a bench overlooking the pond. Simone's heart skipped, hoping this wasn't the moment when James revealed some hidden flaw or secret that would destroy her newfound happiness. I've been offered a position at Children's Hospital in Seattle, he continued. It's a significant promotion, heading up their new pediatric cardiology program. Simone's stomach dropped. Just when she had found someone worth caring about, he was leaving. That's wonderful, James. You deserve that kind of recognition. I haven't accepted it yet, he said quickly. I wanted to talk to you first. What? It sounds like an incredible opportunity. James turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Because I'm in love with you, Simone Clark. And I don't want to move across the country unless I know where we stand. The words hit her like a physical force. No one had said I love you to her since Brandon, and hearing it from James felt completely different. There was no manipulation, no hidden agenda. Just honest emotion from a man she had grown to trust completely. James? I know it's only been 2 months of dating, but I've never felt this way about anyone. You're brilliant, strong, funny, and you've overcome more in the past year than most people face in a lifetime. I want to build a future with you. Simone felt tears threatening to spill over. After Brandon's betrayal, she had wondered if she would ever be able to trust her judgment about men again. But everything about James felt right. I love you too, she whispered. I didn't think I was ready to feel this way about anyone, but you changed that. James smiled, relief flooding his features. So what do we do about Seattle? You should take the job, Simone said firmly. It's too good an opportunity to pass up for a relationship that's still new. I was hoping you might consider coming with me. I know you just started your agency, but Seattle has a thriving business community. You could expand there. The suggestion was both thrilling and terrifying. Moving to Seattle would mean leaving everything familiar behind: her family, her friends, her newly established business. But it would also mean starting completely fresh in a place with no memories of Brandon or the scandal that had defined her life for months. That's a big decision, she said carefully. I know. And I don't want to pressure you. But I had to ask. They sat in comfortable silence, watching ducks glide across the pond's surface. Simone thought about all the changes she had made in the past year. She had ended an engagement, started a business, and rebuilt her entire life. Moving to Seattle would be just another bold choice in a year full of them. What would it look like, she asked. If I came with you? James's face lit up. We could find a place together. I could help you establish your agency in a new market. We could explore the Pacific Northwest, drink coffee in Pike Place Market, take weekend trips to Vancouver. The picture he painted was appealing. A fresh start in a beautiful city with a man who valued her ambitions and supported her dreams. I need to think about it, she said. And I need to talk to my business partners. Of course. Take all the time you need. 2 weeks later, Simone had her answer. After extensive discussions with her team and careful analysis of the Seattle market, she decided to open a second location of Clark Creative Solutions on the West Coast. James would head up pediatric cardiology at Children's Hospital, and she would build her agency into a multi-city operation. The decision felt right in a way that her engagement to Brandon never had. With Brandon, she had always felt like she was compromising essential parts of herself to fit into his vision of their future. With James, she felt supported and encouraged to become the best version of herself. On their last night in the city before the move, Simone and James had dinner at Luigi's, the Italian restaurant where she had her first date with Brandon 3 years earlier. She had specifically chosen the location to prove to herself that Brandon no longer had power over her memories. Any regrets? James asked, raising his wine glass in a toast. About which part? Ending my engagement, starting my own business, or falling in love with a pediatric cardiologist? All of it. Simone considered the question seriously. The past year had been the most challenging and transformative of her life. She had learned hard lessons about trust, self-respect, and the importance of choosing partners who shared her values. No regrets, she said finally, touching her glass to his. Everything that happened led me to this moment, to you, to the life we're about to build together. As they walked hand in hand toward their future, Simone realized that Brandon's betrayal had been the best thing that ever happened to her. It had forced her to discover her own strength, pursue her professional dreams, and ultimately find a love that was based on mutual respect and genuine compatibility. The woman who had handed back her engagement ring 6 months earlier was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely happier. She was exactly where she was meant to be.